Hello, I'm Matthew White. Welcome to Network 10's coverage of Round 8 of the V8 Supercar Championship and what could be a race of attrition here at Sydney's Oran Park. This will be the longest ever V8 race held at this circuit, and it comes at a critical stage of the series when so much is on the line.
The championship is getting ready to go into overdrive. The Enduros are just around the corner. Double the drivers, double the pressure. But this weekend, it's still every man for himself. The question is, can anyone single-handedly stop the Blue Oval Brigade? Going solo for 300 grueling kilometres at Sydney's Oran Park. Round 8 of the V8 Supercar Championship on your home of motorsport, Network 10.
This is the only venue to have hosted a championship round every year since 1971. Oran Park in Western Sydney. Always exciting, always jam-packed. And today we are driving into unknown territory here. One race, 300 kilometres. That is 111 bruising, bumping laps of this circuit. The pit window is open between laps 2 and 80. Compulsory stops for both tyres and fuel in whatever order you want to take them. The weather, absolutely fine, and the crowd has come to play as well. 21 degrees, light northwesterly winds. It is a fine day in Western Sydney. Now remember, this is the last solo drive before the Enduros, and that means it's a crucial race to get your own points in the bank, especially when the championship is getting so close. Non-adjusted, 36 points separate Jason Bright and Marcus Ambrose at the top. Russell Ingall moved up 3 places after winning the last round. And as we go over the page, you can see Mark Skate, the defending series champion, is down in 7th position. Well, starting from pole position today, the same man who started from P1 here last year, Marcus Ambrose, with his 4th pole of the year, a 50% strike rate for the season, and another $5,000 in the bank. All up, he's collected $20,000 from Munro for the pole. Let's check out the circuit with Neil Crompton.
And what a terrific circuit this is. 2.62 kilometres, 11 turns. It undulates, big camber variations, lots of bumps, tricky curves. It seems a long time ago since people like Lowndes and Scaife were racing in the 7s and 8s. A little bit slower this year. Let's go with our hot seat pilot, Greg Murphy, on a very quick lap of Oran Park. Approaching turn 1 at just on 245 kilometres per hour. 5th gear. The rumble over the curb. 3rd gear for turn 2. Watch out for the ripple strip on the right, beneath the bridge. Easy to lock the rears into turn 3. 2nd gear. 75 k's across the middle, bumps on the exit. 3rd gear, another big bump where the old track joins. Climb up to the top of the bridge now. Murph stays in 3rd, a little bit of the rev limiter. 4th, descending right-hander, two wheels on the grass as the car gets twisted up and sideways. In the hollow to 8. Left-hander, 4th gear. Now for the blind dogleg. 2 wheels out the other side, right up against the grass. Back to 3rd gear for turn 11. Up against the concrete wall on the exit. 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th. It's a wild ride around Oran Park.
And we took it with Greg Murphy, the man who won here back in 1997. He is right on the pace this weekend. Right, let's get the latest news from the lane. Our pit patrollers this afternoon, Greg Rust and Daryl Beattie. Good afternoon, Daryl.
Hey, Matty. Thanks, Matty. As we know, at any of these rounds, the fuel stop is one of the important stops at any of these race meetings. An interesting point that's been brought up, comparison between the last 300-kilometre event in Queensland and here today is fuel usage. At that event, they use a total of about 190 litres, and here they're talking 167. A lot less throttle position here, so the burn's less. But the important factor there with that more than anything is the fuel stop. They're talking originally at Queensland, tyre stop was going to be the best option to go for originally, and then fuel after. Here they're saying there won't be much difference because the difference between the 2 stops is only 3 or 4 seconds. In Queensland, it was a lot bigger. So it's going to be good to see on that first stop, which could be after 36 laps for Morris, which one it'll be.
Darryl, knowing when to pit is one thing, tyre management is another. Each car is allocated 10 Dunlop tyres for the weekend here, and the degradation rate is something in the order of 3/4 of a tenth per lap. Now, a safety car period, for example, will certainly help the tyre get back within its working threshold by getting the pressure and the temperature down. Not surprisingly, a number of teams are contemplating at the moment a 3-stop strategy here today. So in that 3rd stop, they'll rotate the tyres around and have a good set potentially for a run to the flag. Watch the inside front left on these cars today. They cop a hammering through turn 2 and the potential to turn them into a 50-cent piece to flat spot them. But it's the right rear which really works hard here. Everyone has been searching all weekend for good balance in terms of tyres.
Okay, thank you, boys. There's no question. It's a case of watch this space around this circuit. Let's take a look at the starting grid as the cars are getting ready to fire away. Marcus Ambrose on the right-hand side of your screen. As I mentioned, pole position, the 12th of his career. That is Greg Murphy's 3rd front row start of the year, and Paul Morris makes it consecutive top 3 starts from position number 3. There's Jason Richards, the best qualifying performance from him for this year. So too from Stephen Ellery. Down to Simon Wills in position number 10. It was an interesting top 10 shootout, and Team Dynamic were right amongst the thick of it. That is the 4th top 10 shootout that Wills has made. Glenn Seaton starting from position 13.
And battling a cold. In fact, a few guys this weekend are feeling ill because John Bower further behind in position 15 is also feeling ill, so several drivers under the weather.
Cameron McConville, Sydney's Lansvale Racing Team, starting out of position number 16 as we go through to David Bernard. Look at Jason Bright, caught up in some traffic throughout the qualifying session. He finds himself way back in 18th position. We'll move through the field as you can hear the roar starting to build. Radicic, Kelly, Jason Bargwana in his 70th career start from position 23. Back to Bradley Jones in 25, Max Wilson in 26, Noski and Wakefield in 28, and Stephen Johnson back in 29.
The 2 shell cars really battling in qualifying yesterday. Max Wilson, incidentally, has been back to Brazil since we last saw him in Queensland, and I've also just had word from the pit lane that car number 21, Brad Jones, is in the garage at the moment, and they've got a technical problem. I think it's a drive shaft related issue. We might get some more on that shortly, but it's been a tough weekend for the Aussie Mail team. Changing a drive shaft with this car, so it's something that they've discovered since the morning warm-up, which was dominated by Russell Ingall.
Let's go back to 2002. Over the bridge is where it all goes down at this race. A lot of the times, Greg Murphy in trouble. Cameron McConville had a big slide into turn 1. John Bower carried his tail loose and then eventually lost it. And in the end, he had a big tangle with Max Wilson. It wasn't a lot of fun for the Aussie Mail Racing team. That was Brad Jones at turn 8. Race 1 belonged to Mark Scaife and his teammate Jason Bright. Look at race 2. Jones and a backmarker in trouble. Aussie Mail coughed up, 80 grand for the weekend. Marcus Ambrose into the ditch at turn 8, and look who let it out. Mark Scaife, with Jeff Grett giving him the thumbs up, and Scaife was purely pumped for that one. That made it 4 straight victories here at the Oran Park circuit. Overall in his career, Mark Scaife has won here 6 times, if you include the 2 back in 91 and 92 in the Nissan GTR days. But gee, Holden Racing Team has a stranglehold on Oran Park since 1996. They haven't been beaten here. Stephen Richards, he's had his troubles throughout the practice and qualifying. He qualified in 12th position. Greg Murphy, a little bit of a mix-up in the sighting lap. Not really sure what that's all about, but he's behind the wheel of a new VY Commodore for him this round. Bradley Jones now will have to start this one from pit lane.
I think Murphy went off on cold tyres, and Todd Kelly did that yesterday as well. There's Stephen Johnson, one of several drivers I mentioned earlier who's actually got a dose of the flu or a bad cold this weekend, and that's wiped the smile off his face. This man was fastest in the warm-up this morning, carrying one of our cameras today. Russell Ingall's teammate Marcus Ambrose put a huge margin on them in the shootout yesterday. He's alongside Greg Murphy. And the big question, Matthew, is tyres, tyres, tyres. This is a long race, 111 laps, the longest single driver stint that I can recall at this racetrack. And I said to Mark Scaife this morning, so what's the take on this in the real world? He said, mate, the real world looks ugly. It's going to be a hard one.
Jamie Whincup brings up the rear of the field, which is just at the way back of the main straight.
The starting line's been shifted forward about 50 metres this year, so they're not starting around the corner, which is good news. We are set for a start.
Listen to the build-up. Marcus Ambrose versus Greg Murphy at the front row of the grid. Mark Scaife and Paul Morris behind them. We're underway. It didn't look as though Scaife got a good one at all. It looks as though he might have been swamped. Morris and Ambrose get a little bit tangled up on the approach to turn one, but Ambrose holds his position and goes through. Now Murphy fights with Morris. Paul Morris determined to squeeze through at turn two. He pushes Ambrose wide. Ugly start to this race at the very front. They go too wide. Down to turn three.
It looked a bit willing in the first corner, and Murphy now offers a little bit back to Paul Morris as they come through turn three. Look at the traffic jam at the back.
Ambrose, Morris gets that position finally. It took him 4 turns to muscle his way into it, and he got there. Up towards the bridge. Single file now. Nothing silly here for turn 5.
Look at the dust and rubber build up on the outside of turn number 6 as they make their way down into the gully. This is 8. Third or fourth gear left-hander before making the approach up to the flip-flop. Great weekend so far for Ellery. Into the top 10. Off to a good start.
Now they all settle down a bit, although Mark Scaife decides to give Greg Murphy a little push along into turn 11. So the order as they cross the control line is Ambrose, Morris, Murphy, Scaife and Ingle make up your 5.
And he's making a little bit of smoke there from the tyre contacting the guard. And what typically happens there, if somebody gets a run on you over the top of the flip-flop, Murphy runs wide, Scaife will be up the inside here, but Murphy's ideally positioned when they get to 3.
Russell Ingle wanted to buy into that one as well. Now Scaife goes past. Into turn 3. Can Ingle get there as well? He tries to shoulder in on Greg Murphy, who's certainly had his hands full since we got the word go. So he's lost 2 positions now in 2 turns, Murphy.
He could lose another one here to Todd Kelly.
Word through that Paul Morris will serve a drive-through penalty for a jump start. Car number 29, a jump start. Paul Morris, drive-through penalty. Now let's take a look at this start from onboard Marcus Ambrose. And everything sort of looked okay for Ambrose. It's what's going on behind him that's the problem, right there.
And you can tell by the attitude looking forward then that the car had a fair old wriggle on, so there was some contact there between car 4 and 29, and then contact again here as Ambrose was just shoved a little wide on the exit of 2. Look how close Murphy and Ingle are on the run to 3. There's Scaife, he got too much wheel spin. Ingle's rounded him up on the inside. And you'll see, look at the, Morris looking for a way. He got a better start than Ambrose, and we're hearing that he, in fact, crept a little at the start, so he's going to serve a penalty. And look at this, 29 and 51.
Well, they thought about it, and then they ended up touching 2 or 3 times.
More of it on the way down there to 3 as Morris tried to find a way to take some racing room back off Ambrose. There was no space. Then Murph gets into it again. Bit of paint swapping, boys. First couple of corners.
All right, now, let's see when they settle down exactly what the order is. Well, Marcus Ambrose is leading. Morris is second on the road at the moment, but he's going to have to go through pit lane at 40 kilometres an hour. There is Scaife and Ingle, positions 3 and 4 on the road at the moment. Remember, the pit window is open. Greg Rust.
Guys, you might be seeing some pics here. This is Nigel Barclay from the Surimate team talking with the Avesco officials, and they know they've got to serve it, so Morris will be due in very shortly for this drive-through very quickly. Aussie Mile Racing's weekend, it went from bad to worse at the start. John Bow complaining of a slipping clutch. His engineer Phil Curtis has been on the radio telling him just keep going, JB. It should free up and get better during the race.
So Mark Scaife, who had his hands full as well from the start, got dug down, and Russell Ingle, as Neil said, just rounded him up in a flash. Your PlayStation 2 race score, Marcus Ambrose leads by 0.7 of a second over Morris. Then it's Scaife, Ingle, Murphy, Todd Kelly in 6th position. Jason Richards in 7th has dropped 2 from the start. Tander has moved up 3. Stephen Ellery in 9th.
There was something strange occurred then on the exit of 3 for Ingle. I reckon he's got a problem. I thought it might have been a missed shift from 2nd to 3rd, but he's actually dropping right back with no pace at all. Problem with car number 9. So...
oh, look at him filing past him too, over to turn 5, and now 6, 7, 8 cars have just gone straight past Russell Ingle in the blink of an eye. We'll listen to the VA Falcon. Oh, look at it shaking and shuddering as he tries to nurse it back to pit lane. So Russell Ingle is going backwards in a hurry. This will show us Stephen Ellery having a little bit of trouble going backwards into the dirt and dragging more of it, no doubt, back onto the circuit. It's been a problem.
We have done an lap.
So back to race conditions. We'll check out Todd Kelly as Garstander goes up on the inside of Richards and slides all the way around and gets it.
Made contact in the process, ran wide in the late part of turn 2. It's on again between Lowndes and Richards on the way to 3 as Morris now serves that penalty, and aggravation between
Simon Wills and Stephen Richards. That'll be caught at the exit of turn 3. Forced a little bit of a traffic jam. Look, they're all bumping up over the grass to get around it.
This looks like a catastrophe going somewhere to happen, doesn't it?
It's going to happen to Rick Kelly. Glass flies. Kelly gets spun around. Oh, big trouble too for one of the better electrical cars, car number 65. And Paul Radicic is forced to go onto the grass with big damage to the front of his car, and he'll pull off to the left.
You can see all that coming.
Ingle in and out. Let's find out what happened to Russell Ingle. Darryl Beattie was there.
Yes, Matty, I just watched the car come down pit lane and asked Ross Stone what was wrong. He said it's got a left rear puncher. We're not sure exactly why. I'm just having a look at the tyre now. It looks like it's obviously deflated. It's not from a big flat spot or anything silly like that, so we'll check that one out.
It's very easy around here, Darryl, to go to the wrong side of one of the sawtooth curbs and do damage to the tyre wall, so I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere along the line Russell in the argy-bargy in the early part of the race could have gone to the wrong side of one of the curbs.
This is the fight between Jason Richards and Craig Lowndes that you saw go through, and then Simon Wills, his teammate, and Stephen Richards get caught up. Now what happens here is that they're 4 or 5. Look at them, they're scrambling everywhere to get back on the tarmac, and by the time they get to the next turn, there's even more trouble. You can see it coming. This is back to that incident involving Richards and Wills.
Wills had a shocking migraine yesterday, and he'll have a bigger headache now after getting tangled up in all of this. Good performance from Team Dynamic this weekend to put 2 cars into the top 10 in their first year of competition, and look at all this on the exit of turn 4. Rick Kelly tangled up. Radicic just really an innocent bystander there as Kelly got all crossed up, and really the reality here is that many cars are just not going to fit into that space.
It was 3 into 1, wasn't it? I think one of the Team Rock cars was also caught up in that.
There's effectively only one race line in that part of the road, and look at that, that's terminal damage on Rick Kelly's car, significant steering damage. They may be able to repair it, they can put a splitter on it, and it's probably got steering arm damage. They can yank that guard off the tyre pretty readily, but what that will do is cost laps and laps, and Rob Crawford may decide that it's better to save the tyres. Probably unlikely to yield any points out of this if it's going to be in there for too long. Right in. Car number 50. One of the longest pit lanes in terms of time penalty.
Have a good look at 2 tyres and we'll go back out and see what we can do. Okay, have to make this our tyre.
Oh, huge damage here in the left-hand side of the better electrical car.
He was caught up. Jason Bright was caught up in that clash involving Radicic and Paul and Rick Kelly. He was the one smack bang in the middle of it in the end, so you can see the damage to the left-hand side. Meanwhile, Team Better Electrical are in. Paul Radicic surveying some pretty nasty damage to the front of that car. Somebody told these guys it's 111 laps. Greg Rust.
Well, Matty, there was dramas there for Jason Bright. The stop took around 15 seconds to throw that fresh rubber on the 50 car, but the problem with it was when they removed the actual wheel gun from the right front tyre, part of it came away, and they had to stop right again to remove that front part of the gun.
Wow. 45 seconds is the total time loss from your departure from a normal lap time to your reacquaintance with the timeline in a normal lap. So you can't afford to spend too much time behind the leader. In fact, it's about 15 seconds behind the leader here, and you're in a pile of trouble. As we look at the PlayStation race score, Ambrose, Scape, Kelly, Murphy, Tander, Richards, Lowndes, Seaton, Bernard, McConville. That's your top 10. This 300k race continues at Oran Park right after the break.
That is Oran Park, as we focus on a man in complete control in the early stages of this race. Marcus Ambrose now with a 9.5 second lead over the second place car on the circuit, Mark Scape. Ambrose is into the 109s, a 109.79. Scape's best time, a 110.85.
And that was set pretty early in the piece for Ambrose, lap 2 in fact, but at the moment he's lapping in the low 10s. Everybody else is in the 11s. This lap here just completed a 10.4. Here comes Scaife. He's next in the queue, and already, as you suggested, Matthew, a long way behind, just on 10 seconds, and his time an 11.1. So Ambrose is pulling 6-7 tenths a lap on average every lap. That's an enormous margin. Surprised that Scaife and Murphy got tangled up in the opening lap, because they had a chat to each other before the race just to ensure that they didn't get tangled up, allowing Ambrose to get a break on them, and that's exactly what's happened. But not only did that happen in the push and shove, but he's got lap speed on them too. Darryl?
Paul, I guess it's a bit hard out there when another car goes shooting across in front of you. It's a bit of a concertina effect with Rick.
Yeah, it was. We just sort of come up to the bridge as we got before the corner before the bridge. There's a great kerfuffle as the car slowed down, and because you take that opportunity, I said, no, I'm going to pick up the inside, and all of a sudden somebody spun one of the Kmart cars around sideways and straight in the side. So, yeah, disappointing so early in the race, but what do they say? That's horse racing, don't they?
Hard luck, mate.
Yeah, cheers, Darryl.
Just to update you on Greg Murphy, he has drifted back to 6th position. He's been on the radio during the course of the break there to his engineer, Eric Pender. He's saying this thing isn't going to last another 10 laps. At the moment, they are struggling for overall balance with car 51, a lack of grip, and Murphy is not too happy about it.
Yesterday, Greg, they tipped the rear roll centre up in the car for qualifying, and the car shot forward in the pack after really kind of battling. Remember, this is the first weekend that he's run that car, and obviously at the moment it's just too hard on its rear tyres in race trim. Meanwhile, Garth Tander's been pretty racy. He was just outside the top 10 in qualifying, but he's now into 4th position, and at one point yesterday he'd really run out of rubber, and I asked him just his thoughts on the car. He said, to be truthful, we're a bit lost, so we put it away to go back and have a think about it. Meanwhile, Lowndes is also looking pretty speedy at the moment. He's come back up into the game. He's 5th, and as always is proving to be a pretty effective racer around here. He's always had good form at this circuit, and even if the car hasn't been quick enough for him in qualifying, he seems to be able to extract good speed in the race. Here's Jason Richards. Good job yesterday to qualify 5th after the shootout and to indeed get the car into the top 10 in the initial phase. And there's Murphy, Greg just spoke about, just drifting a little bit at the moment and on the radio complaining about tyres, and really we expect to hear a lot of that. This is pretty early days. 15 laps recorded out of 111, and as Rusty said at the top of the show, Matty, there's every likelihood that not only is it going to be a case of doing the tyre stop and the fuel stop, it's going to be stops plural, I think, beyond that.
You mentioned these guys throughout the practice session. They were hovering around the 20th position in the 1st and 3rd practice session, and then there were smiles all around in that qualifying when he qualified at 2nd and kept that spot in the shootout, Greg Murphy. But at such an early stage of a long afternoon, it appears as though nothing's going to go right for them for the rest of the afternoon. We'll have to wait and see. Behind him is Jason Richards.
Well, he just has to be patient at the moment and drive the car as straight as possible. What he can't do is take a stop at an awkward time. They're going to have to try and stretch the car as much as they can, look after the tyres, drive it straight, and not excite the rear tyre. It's not a wear issue either, it's a degradation issue. It's the stress and the temperature that's going through the tyre. And look at the lumps and bumps here. The track undulates, the sawtooth curbing aggravates the tyre, it works the casing of the tyre, and there's just no rest. In fact, this circuit, you only spend about 1/3 of the lap flat out at 100% throttle, and the average for the lap is about 48% throttle. So it gives you an indication that you're always dancing and coaxing the car here. It's not a point-to-point circuit.
You mentioned prior, or at the beginning of the show, about the efforts of Team Dynamic. Jason Richards and Simon Wills getting inside the top 10 for the shootout. Well, Simon's had a lot of dramas today, as you know, at the beginning of the race. He's been in, he's only just left pit lane now. It badly bent the steering, and the team have had to change it before sending it back out.
Yeah, and we've got him right on shot now, Rusty, and he's had a few problems there at turn 2 and had to let a whole host of cars go past him. That thing does not look settled at all.
That was contact with Stephen Richards back at turn 3 in the early part of the race, and obviously Wills has now got a drama. He's trying to stay clear of the race line and give everybody some racing room as he figures out what to do and then get it back into the lane. pretty frantic start to this one. I just want to refocus on where we're at. We've got Ambrose leading, then Scaife. Todd Kelly's just quietly snuck along, Tander Lowndes, Jason Richards, Greg Murphy, there's Glenn Seaton. And I had a hunch after Friday when Glenn was very strong that he'd probably race pretty well here. He's very good at looking after the rear tyres on his car, and this is a long way. His teammate David Bernard behind him. Dean Canto into the top 10. There's Bernard in the third of the FPR Falcons. Then it's Paul Wheel, Cam McConville, Stephen Richards, John Bow, Jason Bargwana, and Glenn, I reckon, might have a look up the inside here. And has he got far enough up? He has, because Greg makes it easy for him. So Murphy's adopted a I don't want to fight policy at the moment. He knows that he doesn't have much to fight with, and the more you fight, the more vulnerable you are to getting touched and turned, and the more you knock your rear tyres around. So that's a game he doesn't want to play at the moment. That doesn't happen when you've got a car to fight with. You brawl over every last millimetre. So Seaton now moving to 7th.
And it looks as though Seaton's got a bit of a weapon to fight with for the rest of the afternoon. This is his 18th start at Oran Park, a circuit where he gained his racing licence. And David Bernard, who's at the rear of that little FPR sandwich in between, it's got Greg Murphy in between them. He actually had his first ever professional race here at Oran Park. 22nd in the championship. Now they've got a 3 BA attack out of Ford Performance Racing. And Greg Murphy adopts a wait-and-see attitude for what could be a very long afternoon.
It's a good effort from Dean Canto. He's in 10th, and he started out the week with some quiet times at the rear of the timesheets, but he's just gradually snuck up with each session and was just outside the top 10 yesterday in qualifying.
RPM, by the way, is about to celebrate its 200th episode. You might want to check out the website for your latest motorsport news and see what's coming up on the big one, the 200th. We'll tell you more about that a little later in the show. Lap 20 of 111.
Paul Wheel in the Team Brock entry. He's in between Queensland and this race. Has been working with a sports psychologist to try and get him to de-stress a little bit in his approach to qualifying. And it's easy to do, wind yourself into a frenzy and go out there and try and drive ahead of the car and push too hard and in fact go slower. He'll be pretty comfortable with the fact that he's in 11th at the moment and just sneaking forward, as will Cameron McConville. This was their test track last year, and he's just starting to get up into the game as well.
They were a little bit mystified, Cameron McConville and Lansvale Racing, as to why they weren't going so fast this year when they qualified here 5th last year. They've come back with exactly the same setup. It seems to be paying a few dividends as far as race day goes. So Cameron McConville flying the flag for the Sydney teams. This is the V8 Supercar Championship on your home of motorsport.
So long, mate. You've been bloody good to me. But it's time to move on.
The only thing better than an old Holden one-tonner is the new Holden one-tonner. The Holden one-tonner. It's back.
Mark Scaife now comes in for the first of his compulsory stops. They're going for tyres at HRT. Looks pretty good and clean. Oh, in and out. 7 seconds.
I suspect that that's not what they wanted, though, and we might find out more from Darryl Beattie.
Yeah, Neil, I just spoke to Jeff Gretsch. I said, where did this happen? He said, down into 2. He just got in and locked that front left up too much.
Yeah, thanks, Darryl. I was about to say I wouldn't mind betting there's a flat spot or something like that involved. It's a doozy, isn't it?
It's a ripper. It's definitely got nearly 0 pressure, I'd say.
Looks like a 50-cent piece. So very easily done in the little period of track between turns 1 and 2 with the car unweighted and all the rolled weight diagonal to the right rear. It's the front left that is very light, and you've just got your foot on the brake. You're trying to stop the car to the target speed for turn 2. But you just can't get off the pedal enough to get the tyre to rotate to avoid getting the flat spot.
Look at Scaife throwing himself into business. You can see the chips there on your race score. Shows you how many pit stops they've made. Scaife in 21st position, but he's made 1 out of the 2 compulsory stops. So too is Russell Ingall, Jason Bright, Craig Baird, and Simon Wills has been in a couple of times for all the wrong reasons. On lap 25 of 111, it's hello to Paul Radisich in the commentary box, who'd no doubt rather be still out there. Mate, that was just a little bit of a nasty set of circumstances.
Yeah, it was, and you know, there was an opportune time there to dive up the inside on some cars having a bit of a wobble, and mate, it turned out to be the wrong place at the wrong time because somebody spun the Kmart car around and come straight across.
Was that you on the go-kart track in the grass?
I was trying to avoid everything. I could see what was going to happen, but just at the wrong place at the wrong time.
The other thing about the Scaife stop that Bear's thinking about is I think that puts him in a position where he's going to really battle with rubber later in the race now. So I think not only you're looking at car number 1 having to do its compulsory fuel stop, but I would not be surprised if they have to take on another tyre stop for the stress that'll go through the set of tyres they're on now, because they've got a long, long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, you saw that flat spotting is the number 1 problem, and as soon as you get a little bit of a lock-up, because, you know, the vibrations back through the wheel, you lose all your handling, all your steering, all your braking, and we're going to see more of that as the afternoon goes, so maybe it'll come back to mark.
Guys, the ears just pricked up here in pit lane a moment ago. We overheard a radio transmission. It sounded like Marcus Ambrose talking to his engineer, Paul Forgy. The call on the radio was, hey, guys, I just had a slight over-rev. Can you check it for me? Forgy came back straight on the radio and said, hey, Marcus, it's OK, so we'll keep an eye on that.
So he may have grabbed a neutral somewhere along the line, or maybe wrong-slotted Paul and grabbed a low gear in error and just given it a zing beyond 7,500, which is the mandated limit.
Yeah, possibly coming into turn 1, he might have just picked up 4th a little bit too early. But hey, what can you do about it?
Yeah, you're not going to do a rebuild at this point.
No, you just cross your fingers and hope for the best.
Well, his lap in the shootout was absolutely electrifying. Called it the best single lap dash of his young career. We may as well stay on board with Marcus Ambrose and see how he tackles up over the bridge. 2.62 kilometres of Oran Park.
Turn 6, about 115k through there, building speed again to just on 160k's into the hollow. The stress on the suspension and the tyre across the ripple strip at 8. This is the dog leg, 9-10. Shock control, beautiful on this car. And this is the last corner. Kisses the ripple strip. Speeds about 90k's across the middle of the turn. Making anti-roll bar adjustments in the car. There are 2 bars to Marcus's left. He'll be adjusting in combination the front and the rear bar in order to look after the rear tyres, trying to induce a little more understeer into the balance of the car, make the front tyres work a little harder, take some of the load and the pressure off the rear tyres. And he's just talking now about tagging on the back of traffic.
Yeah, just trying to conserve those rear tyres, and you heard him mumbling before about rear tyres, so he's obviously struggling a bit for rear grip.
He's not alone.
No, he's not.
Here comes Glenn Seaton. 3 of the Ford Performance racing cars are in the top 7 at the moment, so Seaton comes in first. Fresh rubber. Man who won here back in 1994.
And again in 97 to wrap up the title. And he's got a bit of a cold this weekend as well. And he's looking to move himself into warmer circumstances somewhere up in your neck of the woods. He's decided that he wants to, with a little more time on his hands now that he doesn't have the responsibility of running the team, he wants to work on his fitness and get into a more relaxed atmosphere, and he's heading up to southeast Queensland, so he might be knocking on your door for some local advice, Mr. Radisich.
Look forward to that. It's becoming quite a hub up there, in particularly the Gold Coast. It's a great place, as we know, to train and, you know, and generally hang out during the week.
Greg Murphy's down in position number 9 at the moment. Let's check out what's happening at Kmart Racing. Greg Rust.
He's been having lengthy chats on the radio with him, and I can tell you he's saying that the car has this enormous shudder when it's going through certain corners in the front end. He's complaining of real problems with lateral grip. The question from Eric Pender was, can it last another 20 laps, Murph? Can you hang out there for 20 more before a tyre stop? The response wasn't real encouraging.
And one of the things that it's often worth contemplating doing in a race like this, it is actually worth, when the wheels are rattled off, Paul, as you know, considering making a small adjustment to the car. It might cost you another 5, 10, 15 seconds.
Well, this is what it's going to be like every race meeting from here on in, so it's really just a pointless exercise at the moment. Yeah, I'll have a think. I'll get back to you.
So Eric and Greg are in conversation about what they may or may not do for rectification. The point I was going to make there, Paul, is that sometimes it's worth having a fiddle with a shock, or roll bars or whatever, just to come up with something that might put you in a better position later in the race. It seems like you burn time stationary, but you get it back on the track, don't you? And I've seen that done, particularly in these longer races, to great effect before.
Yeah, and the cars are so sensitive that a click of damper adjustment, rebound or bumper makes quite a difference. But saying that, today tyre wear is going to be a big problem. It's just a matter of really just kicking back, staying calm and collective, and the race will sort of come to you. And the harder you push, all of a sudden you're going to have a problem with locking brakes, wearing out those rear tyres, because the track is so abrasive, and no, nothing gets Dunlop tyres. You can run any tyre out there, it's just very, very abrasive on them, and within 5 laps you're struggling for turning and of course power down.
Darryl Beattie.
Yeah, Matty, I was just in Stone Brothers Garage listening to the Ross Stone talk to the crew, and they're saying that boys are starting to come across a bit of traffic, which is a concern for them. They want to keep the pace up that they've been carrying, but also has mentioned that it looks like they won't be able to stop until after lap 37, which Neil spoke about earlier.
And I don't reckon Russell will be in a real hurry to get himself lapped here either, so that makes for an interesting set of circumstances, because he wants to make sure he stays on the lead lap, but they don't want Marcus's teammate to in any way, shape or form interrupt the pace of the race leader. So interesting little battle there in internal strategy.
Yeah, we understand that Marcus Ambrose has said to his team, I will stay behind. For how long? That's the question. The PlayStation 2 race score. Marcus Ambrose in front, a 21.4 second lead over Todd Kelly. Garth Tander there in third. Craig Lowndes is putting in a good performance. So too is David Bernard for Ford Performance Racing. Not even a third of the way into this 300-kilometre race at Sydney's Oran Park. Is Marcus Ambrose on the long road to get another victory? Long way to find out. We'll find out more after this break on your home of motorsport, Network 10.
This is another Snickers satisfying moment.
My most satisfying moment would have had to have been the start of Bathurst last year. It was the first time in V8 Supercar racing I really felt we were in a position to lead from the front, win the race, to get to the first corner in front of everyone and then put a 2-second lead on the whole field on the first lap gave me I was just so proud and excited that we were capable of doing that. I knew from that point on that we were going to be hard to beat all day.
And the Aussie male Ford has opened up 100 metres on the field.
What a start from car 21.
It took me a little while to get into a rhythm, but when Scaife called me, we continued to break the lap record until we worked out who had the stronger car, which on the day was me. So, it was extremely gratifying to know that we had a car that day that was as strong or stronger than anyone else's in the field, and certainly gives you a lot of confidence to get on with the job. Didn't quite work out the way I would have liked, but certainly look back at it with a lot of fond memories.
That was another Snickers satisfying moment.
Welcome back to Oran Park as Greg Murphy now comes into pit lane on lap 35. Car 51 comes in for his first stop. Fresh rubber, Murph. Go, 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 go. 7.5 seconds roughly. And that means there's 76 more laps to do on those tyres.
Long way.
Here's Bradley Jones. Look at the Aussie Mail team going to action. Smooth and sharp as well, in and out. And Kim Jones gets the hands clapped.
Lap times at the moment are pretty astonishing. Everybody's drifted to the mid-12s, and Paul, You know, when you do a 12 around this race circuit, you would swear that you can go and grab a rental car and get around here quicker. It feels very slippery and slow, doesn't it?
Yeah, but that's the pace it's going to be, and it's probably going to get a little slower as the day goes on. I'm surprised how early they're changing tyres. You really need to try and stretch it out, but obviously the wear on the tyre and the grip has just gone away, and these guys are going to be looking to, remember, you've only got 10 tyres for the weekend, so they can reckon they're going to be doing three tyre stops as the day unfolds.
Marcus Ambrose in and out. Daryl Beattie.
Yes, Matty, I watched this team come in. It was a good tyre change, everything good with the old tyres. I watched Jim Stone talk to the crew after he had his stop. They did a little bit of adjustments they typically do on the roll centre, but they all huddled around and was talking pressures. And I heard Jim on the side just say, we might let a little bit out of all four when he comes in for the next stop. So very interesting for that team.
The earliest, depending on who you talk to and precisely their fuel burn, the earliest we're likely to see anyone taking on any fuel is probably in the mid-40 lap realm. But I think the majority of people have probably started with pretty much a full fuel load. 120 litres is the maximum capacity for a V8 Supercar. But remember, some of that is in the fuel lines and in the fuel collector itself. So usable fuel is probably around about 115 litres. The ideal thing is to have lower fuel to get you to the end in the last sequence of the race, keeping in mind you'll need about 185 odd litres in total to do this motor race. You want to ideally probably have the lower fuel load and a fresher tyre for the latter part of the race, Paul.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, you run the fuel load down as far as you can. What you're looking for, of course, later in the day is a pace car to come out.
Oh, look at this. David Bernard was set to go after changing tyres, and his passenger door just opened up and they couldn't jam it shut. Now they're putting their fist into it, tape onto it, anything they can to shut the thing. He was ready to go. David Bernard is now wasting an eternity in pit lane as FPR do everything they can. Heavyweight material into Bernard's car. Greg Rust.
Matty, he was on the radio on the way into pit lane to warn the team that this was part of the problem. FPR were looking so good. Glenn Seaton currently in pit lane as well. The team have actually got that car in the garage. They're looking at the electrics at the moment, had the distributor out, so possibly a misfire for Seaton's car as well.
What are they actually working on there? I can't...
Their door...
cable tie, right.
The passenger door's flown open and couldn't get the plastic glass out of the...
Yeah, I can see that part, but I just couldn't work out what the little thing was, and I realised now it's a cable tie.
Yeah.
Very technologically advanced piece of equipment for a multi-$100,000 car or hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of car, and pieced together with a cable tie. So Bernard has lost a mountain of time in pit lane.
Should explain that it's, I don't know, I haven't seen it shot close enough, but it's very probably as a result of contact with somebody. I've seen that happen before, where someone gets into your passenger door and it just damages the latch.
Here's Stephen Richards, who's been having a pretty good little battle with Mark Scaife out on the track in separate positions, but Scaife has already gone in. So on lap 39, Caltex Perkins Racing and Stephen Richards, who's signed on with Larry Perkins to the end of 2006. He's had a contract extension. Gets underway again. Just fallen away a little in the last couple of rounds, especially in terms of qualifying, Richo. He was so consistent throughout the top 10 shootouts in the first 5 rounds of the year. At Hidden Valley in Queensland, he missed out big time. In fact, in Queensland, he qualified 29th and didn't end up finishing that race. And as a result, his championship picture dropped dramatically. He dropped 4 spots from 2nd down to 6th on non-adjusted championship points. He's 203 points behind our series leader, Jason Bright.
He had a problem up there several occasions with a piston circlip drama that actually ended up damaging 2 engines and putting him out of business ultimately. So that's very unusual for Perkins Engineering to have those sort of dramas, but they've just fallen into a little bit of a setup hole, and it takes a while sometimes when you can get blindsided. Perhaps you've gone down the wrong path on a test day, but you know on your test day or at your home test track that a certain combination of elements gave you a result that you were looking for, but it doesn't always transpose, does it, Paul?
No, it doesn't. Different days, different temperatures, different tracks, and gee, the whole field's covered by second and qualifying, so it takes very little to throw that balance out.
Lowndes in.
Let's see if FPR can get things together this time around. They've had their troubles with both Seaton and David Bernard. Greg Rust is on the spot.
Well, just to update you on Seaton, I've just had a word to the crew in there as Craig Lowndes comes in for his pit stop. Let's hope he's as clean. Indeed it is. Just under 9 seconds. Seaton, they are throwing some new plugs at that car at the moment. It's got a misfire, particularly noticeable at high speed down the front straight.
That's a drama because it was a shame when he was in reasonable shape in Queensland as well. And on for potential for a result, and the same today. So, but Lowndes still in the game and still looking reasonably strong. Just referring back also to Stephen Richards, his young bloke Clayton's been in hospital between races, and but he is okay now, and that's good news for the Richards family.
It's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds as far, because the tyre stop now lap 40. You know, people are going to make, a driver's going to make 3 stops, or they're going to hoping for pace cars as the race unfolds. Because believe me, those last 20 or 25 laps running around on tyres that have done more than 40 laps is going to be a real.
It's going to be ugly. The end of the day for Simon Wills and Team Dynamic.
Oscar Furinotto on the right, the engineer for the team, and that's a shame after qualifying so well. A reminder again that RPM has its 200th episode coming up at 3 p.m. on Sunday the 31st of August. It'll be a great show, jam-packed with lots of interesting motor racing stories and a look back at some of the wonderful highlights of the program in the last half dozen years.
Just point out my teammate in the Better Electrical team, Dean, is running 5th, which is just awesome. He's doing a great job out there.
He's doing a great job.
Oh, look at this fight with Lowndes and Stephen Ellery side by side down the main straight. A little bit of how's your father going into turn 1, and Lowndes is going to get through. He's won that argument hands down.
It looked like Craig had a sense of humour failure there when Ellery started to have a little lunge at him coming down the straight, and CL's fired up. If he wanted to play Dodgem cars with CL's line then, but anyway, he scooted off into the distance.
This is where it starts. You've got to go back to turn 11. When they come onto the main straight, there's a little tap.
And that's why Ellery reacted. So there was a touch-up here at the last corner.
And then take, what, 600 metres further down the road, and they're still at it side by side in pretty good fashion for us on this side of the camera. I don't know how exciting it was going 248 kilometres into turn 1.
Those touches look small on camera, but in the car you well and truly notice them, and it can flare the temper, I can tell you.
Todd Kelly is our race leader at the moment, yet to complete a pit stop. Garth Tander yet to come in as well, so Marcus Ambrose is first, top of the list, as car number 66, Dean Canto, comes in to get a fresh set of rubber. 300 kilometres around Oran Park at Sydney. The 33rd running of an event here at this circuit. We'll be back after this break on your home of motorsport, Network 10. And they've already gone off. Oh, that's an incredible smash to start this race.
Hollywood would have us believe that all big motor racing shunts end in a ball of flame, but the reality is a bit different to that, as you can see by these pictures of Jason Barguana in the Valvoline car. Fortunately, fire and big shunts don't necessarily go hand in hand anymore, thanks to ever-increasing improvements in fuel safety cell technology. Now, in a V8 supercar, as you can see, the fuel system is all housed here in the back of the car. But it's best described when you pluck it all out of the car, and that's what we've done today, thanks to Stone Brothers Racing. First of all, the fuel tank system sits in this casing, which is alloy, Kevlar and carbon fibre, and it simply gives you safety cell bladder protection around the outside. This is the top of the system here, which is carbon fibre. That's what you can see sitting in the actual base of the floor in the boot area. And here's the juicy bit, the actual bladder itself, which is quite a soft thing. And if you pluck it apart, have a look in here, you'll see that there's actual foam that fills this entire tank area. It occupies around about 3% of the capacity, but its main function is to actually reduce the acceleration forces that affect the fuel wanting to slot from corner to corner under lateral loads, braking, acceleration and so on. This thing's actually good for about 114 litres worth of fuel. And remember, there's a 120 litre legal limit for the maximum capacity for these cars. The rest of it is in the fuel collector and in the fuel lines. Now, as you can see, the pump's actually tucked in here in the base of the safety fuel cell, and it just simply pumps fuel up from the bottom of the tank to the collector. All up, this little thing, minus the pump and the fittings, about $1,800, and as you can see by these markings on here, there's a manufacturing date, and these safety bladders are good for 5 years.
Access all areas, and of course VB and Big Pond proud to bring you the V8 Supercar Championship as we go on board with Marcus Ambrose, who comes up to turn 11 down the main straight and will sail past Garth Tander.
With younger tyres, but one of the great strengths of the Stone Brothers cars here this weekend has been their astonishing drive off the difficult turns. Both their cars, Russell's and Marcus's car, have been very good in all the critical places where you need power to the ground. And Paul, we're seeing a lot of cars in now. Ellery, your teammate Dean Canto, a variety of people now coming in and pulling fuel on.
Yeah, this is the fuel window, and it's the time to stop and fuel up, and that's pretty much scheduled. This will take you, I think you take on about 80 or 90 litres to get through to the end of the race, and this is the window for that. And it's a matter of now, because those on newer tyres are not going to struggle as much as ones and old ones, but I still feel the plan is if we get through with the old tyres, fuel up, do another 10 or 15, and then another tyre stop.
On the way to the break, Paul, we saw Dean come in. We thought he was going to have fresh rubber, but you're saying the plan was, oh, Stephen Ellery's got himself a problem underneath here. Oh, look at that. The worst wait you can have in pit lane. Nothing happening inside the cockpit. It's all going on underneath.
Cool air being filtered to the driver via that duct off to driver left. And Paul, just explain to our viewers what you feel with that apparatus. You know, do you get much relief from it?
It's more of a carbon monoxide filter, so it draws the air in from outside through a pump, goes through a filter cup, special carbon filter, and then straight into the helmet. No, you don't really feel anything, but you do stop breathing carbons, which is a good thing.
It is a good thing. Bad sportsmanship flag has been shown to Stephen Richards' car 11. Bit of aggravation between Max Wilson and David Bernard. So when the Southeastern Queensland V8 Supercar Driving Club gets together next week for a coffee at Southport, there could be some aggravation amongst the boys.
Yeah, there was no winners out of that one, was there?
Are you in that club?
Of course he is. He lives too close to Darryl Beattie to have coffee though. Stephen Ellery finally gets himself out of pit lane. Greg Rust has got more on that.
Well, Matty, I can tell you it was a broken left front sway bar, so they brought him in, and as he came into pit lane, he was on the radio saying, guys, we've got to do something with this. It doesn't feel right. They filled it full of fuel, took the front left wheel off and found the damage and repaired it.
And the reason he wouldn't want to live with that, Greg, is that with that broken, with whatever it was, the end of the bar or the drop link or the rose joint, whatever has failed down there, which is easily done across the curbing here, is that will just exaggerate the oversteer characteristic in the car. Oversteer meaning the rear of the car is just wanting to slide too much. Everybody's already got big doses of that this weekend. The last thing you need is another top-up to make the problem even worse. You would not be able to get through from where we are now, lap 48 to lap 111, and deal with that kind of ill-handling car.
No, just chop the tyres out even more, so let alone trying to stop the car in a straight line and all the other problems you have trying to get around the corners.
Here's Jamie Whincup at Gary Rogers Motorsport.
Point out that in compulsory stops, either the tyre stop or the fuel stop, they're isolated in that you can only do one or the other. You can't mix and match. So when you take your compulsory fuel stop, you're not allowed to fit rubber to the car. If you do need another set of tyres later in this race, that's fine, but it needs to be isolated.
Take a look at the crowd that continues to make Oran Park one of the most favourite venues on the 13-round championship that we've got. The V8 Supercar website is up and running as always, v8supercar.com.au. It's great to get in there and check out, in particular in the lead up to our Enduros at Sandown and Bathurst, exactly what teams are doing what with driver pairings. Here's Mark Larkham in the Oran Falcon.
Incidentally, Rick Kelly I saw back out there again, so the problem's all patched up with that car, as we suggested early. They'd drop a few laps, but get him going again at least. He's 3 laps or 2 laps down on the field. I'll verify that shortly. And Ambrose, the last time through, was still hovering in the low 24s. Word also that Glenn Seaton, his problems have hopefully been rectified and he's back out on the circuit. So people taking the opportunity to solve their problems and get back out there in case they can grab some points.
Yeah, the way the points are, you've got to finish the races, and if you don't finish the races, because the points are so close together this year, you really pay a big price, which I will do this weekend.
Bit of serious 100-mile-an-hour tape across the front of the Rick Kelly mobile. She's stuck together rather than bolted together as Brad looks for a run down the inside, and there is room, and does he get it done? Yes.
Yeah, Rick has to give way because obviously 3 laps down or so, it's part of the rules.
And remember that your teammate here has got a car with fat fuel and probably pretty saggy tyres at this point. He's in 14th. and I'd say he'd be the walking wounded at the moment. Brad has a bit of a look, more than a look. He's doing it by braille.
Yeah, Dean will be now wishing he'd put on new tyres about 10 laps ago, but I still feel it's the right strategy with the speed that we have in our better electrical cars.
Brad had a good run out of 2, but that made him vulnerable being on the outside at 3, which then invited Rick Kelly for another look. Incidentally, Seaton is back in his bunker and out of the car, so that's a great shame for FPR in car number 5.
Let's just recap the order on your PlayStation 2 race score now that all of our top contenders have done one of their 2 pit stops. Marcus Ambrose leads Mark Scaife, Craig Lowndes, Russell Ingall, Jason Richards, Todd Kelly. Then you've got Murphy, Tander, Bow and Bright making up our top 10. You can see there that Paul Morris has been in twice, but one of those was his drive-through penalty. So he's done his tyre stop. He's also done a drive-through penalty. He will still have to do his compulsory fuel stop.
BJ got through at turn 11, the final turn, and now sneaks up a spot to 13th. Look at his lap time. Bradley in that battle there. Last lap 13.2, Dean 13.8. Boy, Marcus done 11.1.
Oh, that didn't sound nice at turn 2 at all. See if they managed to stay on the road. That was Stephen Ellery right underneath the nose of our camera, and you can hear the super cheap auto Ford, and now it just limps across to the right-hand side of the track and comes almost to a stop as he lets the traffic go by.
It'll be a flat spot. There's a shot there I noticed of Jason Bargwanna. We've not seen much of him as Paul Wheel comes in the 16 Team Brock Better electrical car. Bargwanna running the BA Falcon for the first time this weekend. Daryl?
Yes, now just watching Mark Scaife come in, they're going to do fuel. Also watching Jeff Gretsch give these boys a bit of instructions. They've got the tool out on the roll center as well, and he said down, down, wind it down. So they're making that adjustment also.
Looking to make life easier for the rear tyres.
Yeah, enable the car to move around at the back and get more traction and just try and look after those rear tyres.
By dropping the roll centre, the car has more roll. Can act over itself with more roll in the rear. Just loosens the back of the car a little bit.
Roughly 68 litres worth of juice put into the tank of Mark Scaife, and now Greg Murphy will get a top up as well.
Tyres, so I don't know. Would have wait and see. It's going to be a long 70 laps.
He wears it on his sleeve, doesn't he, Murph? Yeah.
Yeah, there's no answer for that one.
Go.
Not a lot of urgency in his voice. He sounds a bit dejected by the lack of pace. He just needs to be patient at the moment. He's still in the top 10. It's a long championship. It's a long race.
He is. He's third on the championship ladder at the moment. Moved up a spot after Queensland. There's Cameron McConville getting a fresh supply in the rear of the Lansvale Racing Commodore. Marcus Ambrose is our race leader. 34.8 seconds in front of Craig Lowndes. What a remarkable statistic. Marcus Ambrose is another man in control, although we understand that Marcus is now coming into pit lane, which will be for his fuel stop. Cameron McConville now rejoins with traffic. Here's Marcus Ambrose. Comes into pit lane, backs it down to 40 kilometres an hour. Todd Kelly in front of him. Gets some fresh rubber. A back-to-back stop for the Holden Racing team. One garage up the road, you find these guys. Stone Brothers Racing. Daryl Beattie's there as they fill up Marcus's car.
Yeah, I'm here, Matty. He actually stalled the car as he pulled up, but everything looks fine here. Fuel going in. You see the guys taking that pressure out of the tyres like I spoke about earlier, which I've been talking about quite some time, but this rear bumper's taking extra time.
And the reason for the rear bumper repair, remember that Paul Morris got into the back of that car on a couple of occasions in the opening lap off the start line, and it was starting to flap a little. They don't want to end up with a black flag to come in and repair that. They've taken the opportunity to tape it up. How's this? Two teammates, one on cold tyres, and Russell comes down all hot and fired up as Marcus sneaks out in front.
He had to blink twice there, Russell Ingall, when he saw the blue Pertec car come out.
I shouldn't say cold tyres, all he did was take fuel, didn't he?
Just fuel, yeah.
These guys, of course, have announced throughout the week that they'll be pairing up at Bathurst. Marcus Ambrose and Russell Ingall, and Craig Baird has flat right rear at turn 11, so he'll be able to limp it back into pit lane. It's a tricky little negotiation into the entry of pit lane, and especially with a flat right rear.
It's quite awkward. not so much for the getting into the lane, but for the cars that are online. See them in the background as they come out and sweep to the outside of the road on the exit of turn 11. Puts you right up against the concrete wall, right at the point where you're about to go from the 3rd to 4th gear change, and the driver is deciding to go to the pit lane, puts his foot on the brake to start to reduce speed to comply ultimately with the 40k limit. And over the years, that's created a little bit of excitement in that location.
Well, that makes it an unwanted but necessary 3-stop strategy now for Team Kiwi and Craig Baird. He'd already done his tyres. Now they're forced to do another one. But there's much more trouble underneath. But they're noticing now from car 021 on lap 55 of 111. We've got a race in our hands. This is round 8 of the V8 Supercar Championship. Welcome back. Back-to-back Ford attacks in pit lane. Stephen Ellery goes for rubber. Russell Ingall there also coming in. Ooh, a little bit slow on the takeoff for Ellery, but he rejoins now. Ingall is getting fuel. These tyres, remember, he's had since lap 4. Daryl Beattie.
Yeah, it's interesting. You probably shed some more light on it. Obviously, pressures are rising with the amount of miles they're doing around here on the rear tyres, but both cars in both stops, for the first time that I've seen this year, have actually gone down and released pressure out of the rear tyres.
Well, the temperature of the day continues to build. Tyres are getting worked very hard, particularly hard on the Ingall car. Yeah, when he came in, it was lap 4, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, the more, you know, the more slip you have, the more the tyre goes away, the more pressure it's going to build up. So, yeah, hand in hand.
So lots of shuffling in this pack at the moment, but Lowndes is at the top of the tree. He's lapping in very high 110s at the moment, 10.9, 11 flat, pretty good speed. And then it's Jason Richards, Marcus Ambrose, John Bow, Jason Bright after an ugly qualifying. Championship leader and contender right up in amongst it. Stephen Richards, Mark Scaife, Brad Jones, Paul Dumbrell. Good effort. Todd Kelly, Mark Larkham, Russell Ingall, Garth Panda, David Bernard, Greg Murphy, Mark Noski. Remember, there's still some shakeout to be seen in all that, so you can't read too much into it until everybody's done a minimum of at least the 2 compulsory stops to see where it settles to.
17th on the road is Paul Morris, trailed at the moment by young Jamie Whincup.
So one thing is could also play a part in it is brakes. You know, particularly later in the race. I'm pretty sure, you know, we'll all get through, but there could be 1 or 2 that could really struggle towards the end on brakes.
Well, I think the human component, as someone described it midweek, the organic component of the car is probably likely to struggle a little bit as well, because it's a long way. The 300 k's around here, it's a busy circuit. It's only a 600-metre front straight. At Oran Park, you get to nail a couple of gears, 3rd to 4th, 4th to 5th, 5th to 6th, and then you're back into the hard physical effort again with big brake application at the bottom, and then the rest of the track, you're just left and right, and as your belts get a bit wet, as you know, Paul, and you're sweating, your suit's wet, you're actually getting a bit smaller, you're moving around in the car, it's hot, the whole process, you know, can be pretty debilitating, and I reckon that, well, 20 or 30 laps from now, there's going to be a few guys with tongues hanging out.
Yeah, you're right. The fitness side of it will start to show through, and he who's the fitter will definitely have the advantage for the later part of this event.
Here's Scaife with Paul Wheel on his tail. They're just waiting, HRT, until the Sandown round before they unveil the full-bred VY Commodore with the Holden Motorsport engine, which has certainly paid dividends for guys like Paul Morris. Just testing and developing that car to make sure it's right for the Enduros. Greg Rust.
Manny down here in pit lane with Team Kiwi. This is what remains of the right rear tyre of Craig Baird's car. Now we'll try and maybe analyse why this tyre deflated suddenly. Here you can see quite a massive crack in this rim. It's the 2nd deflation they've had during the course of the weekend. They are currently changing the right rear caliper on that car, and a pretty frustrated Kiwi and Craig Baird, who've been having a good run so far this weekend, stuck here in pit lane right now.
It's the end of Craig Baird's day, a tyre souffle. Really ugly when they got it off, and they found much more damage underneath. Times comparison between Ambrose and Scaife over the last 1, 2, 3, 4 laps. Shows you that Scaife is almost a half a second and then roughly a second behind for 2 out of those 4 laps.
This little battle here is interesting because Paul Wheel's on considerably younger tyres than Mark Scaife. Remember that Scaife's a bit out of sequence because of the flat spot on that tyre incurred on the way in the braking run into turn 2. Scaife's tyres are considerably older, and Paul's got a little bit of extra pace at the moment, finding it difficult. It's a very tough track to pass on Paul.
Yeah, sure. I was just thinking there what a difference a year makes, yeah? And, you know, Mark last year couldn't do anything wrong, and this year, he's having dramas along the way.
And this time last year, Paul Wheel ended up on his roof. So, I mean, what a difference a year makes for him as well.
Upside down at the end of turn 1, Paul Wheel. He was in a Ford then. He's in a Holden Commodore now, and he's 5th on the championship. Moved up a position after Queensland Raceway. Of course, his teammate is our non-adjusted series leader. And if you take out the worst round at the moment, which is starting to get very interesting after 7 rounds, Marcus Ambrose has a 2-point series lead over Jason Bright.
Scaife took tyres on lap 21, whereas Wheel only just recently took tyres on lap 52. So we're working 63 of 111 at the moment. So, and that's just making Scaife a bit vulnerable.
Yeah, Paul's just got the tyre grip. He just keeps losing a little bit coming out of the turns, but you have to say it won't be too long. He'll find a way up the inside.
They're behind Bargwana there at the moment in that new BA I referred to before in the Oran entry. One of the things that's curious, that they've been having lots of oversteer dramas with that car, as a lot of people have when they first got into the BA and they've tried to sort it out. You can't carry over the AU settings to the BA. And it's his teammate Mark Larkham in getting service on the AU. But one of the things that struck me when I saw the car in the warm-up this morning, when you look at the Bargsmobile, is just the front ride height of it. They've got a lot of ride height in the car to try and kill some of the oversteer. Have a look at it if we get a shot of it down the front straight. It's got a massive air gap and a huge gap from the front tyre to the top of the mudguard.
There it is there. I just saw it, Neil, coming up over turn 11. It looks as though he's about to take off.
Yeah, in an effort, no doubt, to try and arrest some of the oversteer issues that they've been having with the car.
Jason Bright goes a little wide there at turn 2, and Scaife was ready to pounce on that. So Scaife and Paul Wheel have joined Bargwana and Jason Bright, who's carrying a bit of a battered car number 50. Here's Scaife. And there goes Wheel. So Wheel slots in ahead of Mark Scaife at turn 4. Now it's a 2-team Brock attack. Mark Scaife doesn't sound overly happy about what just happened. Jason Bargwana's got some pretty good speed on Jason Bright's car. Now let's just take a look at this move from Wheel on Scaife. So that's Bargwana. There goes Bright, and then there's contact. Ooh, it didn't look as clean as what we thought it was.
Mark tried to cover his line then, and it was a little bit too late. So Paul just had that extra drive out of the corner and was able to dive up the inside of turn 4.
On board with the 5-time series champion and the VB camera. And by the way, make sure you watch 10 in the coming weeks for our VB comp. We're going to be giving away some trips to the VB Superbox at Mount Panorama Bathurst in 2 rounds' time. Jason Bright now comes in once again. We also understand that Mark Scaife is coming in also.
He'd be up for another set of tyres. Yeah. Remember, Lowndes is leading, but he hasn't taken his fuel stop yet. Lowndes has not taken his fuel stop.
That's the second set of fresh tyres for Jason Bright. He did it on lap 7. Just did that one there. You saw on lap 64.
And Jason Richards hasn't taken fuel, so Marcus Ambrose has taken both the fuel and, of course, the tyres.
Yeah.
And the question remains now whether or not they're also going to need to sneak another tyre stop in. A safety car could affect that. Darryl, what can you add?
Yeah, Neil, I'm standing down here at the moment with...
Sorry, mate, stand by. We just need to clear the smoke and see exactly who that is. Jason Bright, on fresh tyres, has come round at turn 2 and ended up in a puff of smoke before he got to the bridge. Now he goes rally car driving to get it back on. Surprised he can see his way. Let's see what happened. Paul Morris is there as well. Is there any contact? He goes wide. There's a touch. Bright spun around. Morris caught in the middle of it again.
He's picked up the throttle to try and arrest the motion of the car. You don't want to end up in the bridge or on the stanchions down there, and you don't know where you are when you're going backwards, so Bridie's used the throttle just to stop it.
That's a really dangerous spot. Sorry, Daryl, didn't want to cut you off there.
Yes, Matty, I was just here with HRT and the boys are out and they only had the front left tyre out. Obviously a coincidence earlier he locked that and flat spotted the front left, and they had the big hammer as well, obviously to fix the contact that he had with wheel, but he still hasn't come in.
Mark Scaife, who is trying to become the first man to win at the same circuit 5 years straight.
Bowes fourth at the moment. He's yet to take fuel. Stephen Richards in car number 11 is yet to take fuel. He's fifth. Here's Bow now. He'll get some fuel in 888. Jason Richards obviously just on the way out, so he's grabbed some juice. So we're just seeing the final bit of the shakeout now.
And by the time that we come back, you can probably rest assured that Craig Lowndes will be ready to come on in. So he leads on your PlayStation 2 race score. Ken Ford make it 7 rounds in a row in the V8 Supercar Championship. At the moment, they've got the 2 fastest men out there, Lowndes and Ambrose, back after this break. Welcome back to Sydney's Oran Park, the V8 Supercar Championship. And David Bernard out of Ford Performance Racing does his fuel stop. See there, the fuel pods are being weighed. It allows the team to keep track of exactly how much is going in. And in the commentary box, we've done ourselves a little driver change. Paul Radicic has stepped out and Glenn Seaton has stepped in.
It was pretty efficient too. They belts on and off and clip Cedo in pretty efficiently.
Yeah, thanks, Matty. Naturally, like I said just when I walked in, I don't particularly want to be here with you guys. Not that I don't like yous. I'd rather be on the road out there at the moment. But
I'll change deodorant next time, I promise.
Yes, you do smell it.
What was the problem with the thing, Glenn?
Well, it's dropped number 2 cylinder, as in why, we don't know. Where they pulled out number 2 plug and it was quite wet. So it's quite internal, whatever's gone on. It's the same engine as Queensland. All it's done is change the front of the engine from Queensland, what broke there, and the same. So I'll be working out after this weekend what number that engine is, and I don't ever want to see it.
Yeah, exactly. You were looking pretty good too. We made comment early in the race that you know how to look after the rear tyres, and you were just sneaking along pretty well. I think that it was reasonable to say that you were on for a solid finish today.
Yeah, I think so, Neil. There's no doubt. Throughout the stint, I had to sort of get into it and then back off, get into it and get back off, just to look after the tyres, because through here and this circuit is quite hard on tyres, and we just had to look after them. But we got a puncture early in the stint as well, so we had to come in and change that. But whoop, someone's gone off here. Stephen Ellery.
Well and truly. That's off at turn 6 on the outside. He's actually, I don't think he actually had a spin so much as a bit of a half lose, and has gathered it back up and slowly easing himself back onto the road. It hasn't been a great day for him.
Well, we've been crunching the numbers to see what would happen with Craig Lowndes, and we understand that he'll be coming in this lap for fuel, so he's gone 72 laps.
And my calculations were in terms of using the average rate that we thought people were going to burn here, and the usable fuel that you have, you'd run 72, 73 laps. And so he's gone into this race with 120 litres filled to the brim, and he's burnt all of it off. That means now, in terms of the refill, that it's a shorter refill to get sufficient fuel to carry him through to the end, refilling at a rate of about 4 litres per second.
You are a mathematician, aren't you?
No, I've just got a calculator.
Got
actually.
all this
The fact of the matter is I'm a bit of a dope. I just use things to help me.
Here he comes.
I reckon he's up for about 14 or 15 seconds worth of fuel. Now, the other thing is that, what about Jason Bright? He's also been out there. He's come in twice for tyres, but no fuel. So Jason Bright will have to be coming in shortly as well. Otherwise, he'll be on reserve. And Stephen Richards is in that category as well.
This should be about 58.5 litres of fuel.
I don't know. It's battle of the calculators here, which works out roughly about 14 or 15 seconds.
We're having a calculator off in here. It's the only racing we've got now. Is there another
15, pretty much on the knocker, 15 seconds for Craig Lowndes, and it looked as though somebody went in deep at turn 1. I saw some yellow flags flying at the end of turn 1.
And if you're deep at turn 1, as you suggested then, Matty, then that's a big possibility of a safety car, because to retrieve the cars from down there, it's in a dangerous position. You've got to get marshals in there, and that's dangerous. So when people are on the circuit, you've got to arrest the race, and slow it down.
I don't see any deep tracks, so it must have been a lose and a save. Whatever it was, it doesn't appear to have interrupted our race preparation as we move towards the final parts of this 300-kilometre event. Greg Rust.
Had a word to John Russell, guys, just to try and ascertain what the strategy was behind Craig Lowndes there. I said, can you tell me? He said, yes, I know what it is. It's a little cagey to begin with, but their actual plan was to try and run it to a safety car. They were hoping for a safety car for Craig Lowndes. That didn't quite happen.
Yeah, I'm surprised that we've not seen a safety car in this race. I think some people would have been, Stephen Richards out of the game. Some people would have probably expected that to have unfolded this afternoon, Greg, and so... But it's always difficult, Glenn. You can't really factor it into your calculations. You need to have it in the back of your mind when you crunch numbers, but you just can't be guaranteed, can you? There were some races we've done where you would have sworn there was going to be absolute chaos and you get 0, and then other days you think there'll be no chaos today and the boys go nuts.
Well, that's right. Look at Queensland, for example. In the practice sessions, I think we had 2 or 3 or 4 red flags every session. So, and we went through Queensland without any pace cars at all. So it's amazing that today I would have thought there would have been some pace cars.
Absolutely.
But it hasn't happened. So you do got to make sure that you've got your calculations right.
Now that the shuffle has happened, Marcus Ambrose has resumed control of this race, and Stephen Ellery continues to find trouble. Now, this was him at turn 1, so...
Oh, that's what all the dust was.
Hey, there's a view of Oran Park. So, thankfully, he didn't go deep, although that's a very precarious position.
Not the way you want to be facing when the boys arrive at 250 kilometres an hour. Awkward little bit of road, that one, Glenn. Very fast approach where Marcus is now. You grab 6, 250k, big bump right there past the pit lane exit. 5th gear, cross that little apex, and then very easy to lock your left front on the way here to turn 2.
Absolutely. There's quite a knack in getting through turn 1 and the approach to turn 2 without locking the brake. If you can get through there and then straighten the car up as much as you can and stand on the brakes then.
Land the front left tyre so you can reapply brake pressure.
Exactly right. So it is a tricky corner, and it does catch a lot out. There's quite a few 50-cent pieces after this weekend. So, but look at these guys are doing a great job. Like in qualifying yesterday, and the top 10 runoff was really impressive.
The car looks great, doesn't it?
It's unbelievable. It looks completely different than every other V8 supercar out there when it does it. Yesterday, you'd swear he would have been 2 seconds off the pace the way he was running around in that qualifying.
It
didn't look that
exciting.
slow.
Yeah.
But as we all know, that's always the fastest lap is when it does look tidy.
Todd Kelly is really putting some pressure on his teammate and team boss, and now he decides to have a lunge at turn 3 and takes that position. So Kelly moves up into 3rd and relegates Mark Scaife down to 4th.
Scaife must have a problem, does he? Because
he's a bit out of sequence, Glenn. Early on, he flat spotted front left in that spot we were talking about, and so he had to come in and take tyres at lap 21. And I don't think he's been back in. There was that little contact just before you arrived with Paul Wheel, and we suspected he might need to do some repair or replace. I think it was a front right. I can't remember off the top of my head. But he's on pretty old tyres at the moment. That's his big issue. That's why he's let Todd go. He didn't bother to argue. So it's lap 75, and he came in on lap 21 for tyres as a result of the flat spot. So he's actually running around out there with fairly average tyres.
If you look at his expression on his face, he's working pretty hard. He's pretty red, the old Scaife. So
doesn't look like he's doing a lot of humour in there, does it?
The Shell Helix race update. Marcus Ambrose is our leader. Craig Lowndes is 2nd. Oh, a little bit of touchy-feely stuff at turn 2 between Bargwanna and Scaife. Jason Richards there in 6th. The top 10 is Ingle 7th, Murphy 8th, Dean Canto in 9th, and Paul Morris in 10th.
Of course, the dilemma now for Mark Scaife is that he's 4th. What his guys will be concerned about is that given that you drop a net 45 seconds minimum off your total total lap time when you stop. If he does come in and grab another set of tyres now, he's buried. He'll just be buried so far in this field that you won't even know he's been here. However, if he can stroke the car along in a straight line... Whoa, one of the Oran cars, was it? I think on the way down... Oh, actually, two cars, a Shell car off on the infield there as well.
He's actually dumped some oil, if you just saw back in the picture there.
There is some fluid.
That's Mark Larkham in there. So Larkham went right, and one of the Shell cars went left.
Look at the fluid on the road.
Yep.
Skating ring, and it just peels off to the left. It's oil, and then there's the Shell car next to the pond.
The big line that points to the guy who did it. And Max Wilson jumps out of the car. Now this is what will happen. So Larkham goes in and touches the wall, and earlier on that, Wilson has already dumped a whole heap of oil and gone through to the infield. So the oil goes all the way back.
Yeah, it's off the bridge, which is a bad spot for it, and they've been trapped at turn 6, and off he's gone.
Todd Kelly, who's fourth on the road at the moment, comes in for yet another pit stop.
Left front tyre, I reckon, yeah, only because that would obviously caught the big flat spot just after Glenn and I were talking about it on the run down to turn 2. This is unfolding as a pretty fascinating battle. We'll be back with more at Oran Park right after this break.
Here is Russell Ingall on lap 82 of 111, holding down 6th position at the moment. He became only the 8th man in championship history to win a round for both Ford and Holden when he took the checkered flag at the Big Pond 300 at Queensland Raceway.
Man of the match, I reckon, so far, Matty, because he came in with that puncture early in the race and was forced to take tyres at a very early stage, lap 4 in fact, and has now stayed out there nursing this set of tyres and continues to just hold his end up pretty effectively. I mean, he doesn't have sensational lap speed, but he's just driving nice and neat and straight, Glenn.
Yeah, he's doing a great job on it, because you can see with this in-car camera shot that he's struggling for grip, but he's doing a great job still getting the times down to what he needs to. He'll just need to soldier on to the end of the race, and he'd be hoping that these tyres can last between now and still a fair way to go. So
and Mark Scaife's really in a similar position in that his rubber's done an awful lot of mileage, so and he's just got to continue. Both these guys really have no option but to try and do their very, very best to just nurse the tyres, because they just know that factually if they stop now, that buries them in the field. So even if you back off whatever number of tenths it takes at the moment to really, in spots like this, not break into wheel spin, not make oversteer coming onto the straight, then you can give the tyres the little rest they need to try and get them through to the end.
Absolutely, and this time now is the hardest mentally and on your body in fitness-wise, when the cars are absolutely terrible, got no grip, you're on the edge everywhere.
And it's funny how you can come back to life if all of a sudden there's a safety car and the tyres rejuvenate and cool out and re-pressure. When you go again, suddenly when the car's got some braking and lateral grip performance, it's like your whole body comes to life, and it's clearly a mental thing, because all of a sudden with some inspiration, you're all pumped up and away you go again.
Yeah, right. It's an amazing thing, Neil. And some of these guys, especially Craig, I bet you he'd be hunting for a pace car at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Because he'll put him in a pretty good position to challenge Marcus from there to the end.
There's team dynamic as we look at Jason Richards, who's aiming for his best championship round of the year. The best he's done so far is 15th at Winton. Right now he's holding down 5th position. Troubles at Dick Johnson Racing, and Greg Rust has more.
Well, Matty, not only is it car 18 that's retired, but the flu-stricken Stephen Johnson is out. What's wrong with your car?
Mate, just before that first pit stop, it started running a little bit rough and starting to misfire a little bit. Once I got going again, we realised that it was either a header pipe or a muffler that was broken. So we soldiered on and lost a lot of power. But after that, it just started to get slower and slower and slower. And then it eventually dropped a cylinder and it wouldn't come back. So we decided to park it.
Given your condition, what's it been like out there and how hard is it on you?
Pretty tough on me, but, you know, trying to breathe through your mouth and your blocked nose, it's dreadful. But to be honest, if I was 100%, I think it'd be all right. It's pretty tough out there, but a lot of sand and very slippery. But you know, hopefully we can have a bit more luck with the Shell team next weekend.
Roll on sand out.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
There he is, Steve Johnson. Darryl?
Thanks, Rusty. Another team down here so far having a bad trot this weekend. He's had a bad trot at the last round as well as Stephen Richards. This car came in, I saw him put a new alternator in it, then they pushed it out. It fired before they got it outside. They fired it in with the jumper leads. Then Avesco wanted to see it start on its own accord, then it wouldn't, so they had to jump start again. Took him a while to get going again. He's gone out and done another lap, and it's burnt a hole in some plug leads, so now they're replacing all those, so not a good day for him.
Absolutely not, and especially in terms of the championship. Throughout the first few rounds of this championship, Stephen Richards was consistently second. Now he's slid down to 6th on the championship ladder. And remember, you can only drop one worst round effectively. By parking it here, he'll get 2 DNFs in a row.
Here's Dean Canto in 9th position at the moment. Opening practice session, he was 26th. In the second session, which was Saturday morning, he was 20th. He dropped back to 28th in the third session, which was the lunchtime session yesterday. And then things started to turn for him. Qualifying wasn't bad. 14th, he was alongside our co-commentator Glenn Seaton on the grid. And he was with us at FTR a couple of years ago after he'd won the Konica Series. And he's just rolled himself into the top 10, so he's not going too bad, Glenn.
He's going great, particularly when the poor kid halfway through the year looked like he was actually wouldn't maybe not even be at Oran Park. So I think he's done a great job to handle the pressure that he's been put on. And really, to qualify 14th yesterday was a sensational job, I think, for him. And he's doing a great job now.
It's difficult, isn't it? The step up from most other categories to this category can be a real rude awakening for drivers, because it's almost impossible to, as we look at the yellow flag flying there must be aggravation down the last corner. There is big time. Jason Bright, I believe, is the culprit. He was the man that made the dust cloud. And this might tell us why. No, this is down at turn 4, McConville and Rick Kelly. And
just what Rick Kelly needs, isn't it?
Yeah, bit more damage at the back, so they can tape that up too. But he gets, oh, look at the gravel coming out of that. Oh, no, what an ugly spot. So I reckon Brighty's gone off to the outside over the flip-flop and gone down and given it a bit of a ploughing, so half a chance he could come into pit lane for a gravelectomy just to get rid of some of the gravel that's all in the brake ducts and the rads and all the rest of it.
The thing with that is when you've just gone up and you've filled half the car up with sand and dirt, and you arrive at the next corner, most of the time you slip off again and you feel like a bit of a wally.
Hey, 2002, the same thing happened to John Bower. Exactly what's happening now at this circuit happened to JB here last year. He ran around for a few laps like that and then effectively ended up losing his bum on turn 4 after a while. And I reckon the same thing's about to happen somewhere here. There you go.
Sounds like a particularly painful thing to experience.
Well, it sounds like a gravelectomy, only worse. Brad Jones goes past, and that is stuck just about on race line almost. Just going to sneak on the inside of it. Don't forget, Sandown 500 is coming up the 14th of September. Double drivers. We go into endurance mode. This will be Jason Bright, so you're right. He's come over the flip-flop and turned his Team Brock Commodore into a pickup truck.
I'll tell you what, Neil. He'll be thanking you at the end of the day for that gravel trip over the top of the dog leg there, I've got to tell you, because that would have been a big one if it wasn't for that.
Remember when you and I battled to get that in there a few years ago? The safety car will be standing by, I understand, and in fact has been deployed. Yellow flag, full course yellow, and that's the breather that Craig Lowndes needed. His last lap was a 13. Ambrose lapping in the mid-12s, but this will be the opportunity for tyres to re-energise. They cool out, pressure down, temperature down. Ambrose has had the quickest car all day, and for the majority of this weekend, unlikely that it'll be threatened, but when the pack is bunched, that's when things can occur.
It's going to make a fantastic race now to the end, and no doubt my teammate will be absolutely cheering in the cabin.
Won't he? What? The Audi safety car comes out, and that 29.4 second lead that you see that Marcus Ambrose has over Craig Lowndes will now be whittled away. A restart after the break on your Homer Motorsport. We're back under green flag conditions, and the race is really on. 20 full laps left to go now at the end of 300 kilometres. And Marcus Ambrose, who had a commanding lead, has seen that lead being squashed up by the safety car. Up over turn 5. Jamie Whincup goes through. These guys are a lap or two down, and and they cross the control line. We'll give you an update on the PlayStation 2 race score. Look at the race tape on Marcus Ambrose's Pertec Ford at the back.
See, Ingles a lap down, but he's mixed up with all the leading contenders here, and there was also aggravation at the restart between Bow and Lowndes, and Lowndes ended up running very wide at turn 4 and has now lost a lot of ground, a lot of metres to this man, Marcus Ambrose. 19 laps to run. So it's Ambrose, Lowndes, 3.4 seconds, and that's pretty disastrous for Lowndes because obviously they were nose to tail at the restart. There's Lowndes.
Yeah, the gap was about 30 seconds before the restart. There was a few cars, a few lap traffic in at the restart, and then Lowndes got a little bit squeezed wide, and as you said, the gap is now 3.5 seconds. Greg Murphy, I understand, has been in yet again. We might just see what happened here with John Bow's piece of equipment that he left behind. He decided to get rid of it himself. And look at the marbles on the side of the road there, the rubber left behind.
Huge amount of build-up and dirt and garbage there, Glenn, which if you go literally a couple of millimetres offline, it's all over, isn't it?
It's like a skating rink now, as you'd know. So the guys are going to have to be really careful where they pass. Because if you ever get on the marbles, she's all over. Whoops. Bit of touching up going here. Maybe that's a bit of a payback for
well, there was certainly some contact between those two cars at the restart, and
Lowndes flashing the lights.
Yeah,
about to get out the road.
Remember that.
You think John will pull over?
I don't reckon he'd be in a hurry. Now Lowndes has a look up the inside. And he's trying to put a lap on him.
And he'll get him here at turn 4. Down to turn 3, rather. Too much pace just underneath the bridge, and Cameron McConville snuck in behind John Bow. I mentioned Greg Murphy came back in for another set of tyres. He came in on lap 89. Darryl Beattie with more.
Yes, Matty, I just spoke to Rob Crawford from the Kmart team and asked him why. He said we were going to take a gamble to see if we can gain some pace here for the run to the end and make up for your position. So Vesco all asked him there was something wrong with the car. Apparently he's punched one of the jacks up high up under the car from hitting the curbs as well.
Yeah, the height of the curbs in several locations. Oh, someone's backing it in at Sutton's at turn 8, and it's Paul Wheel. You can see the camber on the curb there, and as the dirt digs away on the backside of the curbing, it's real easy to do damage underneath the car.
Absolutely, and he'd be praying that he hasn't done any damage just then.
Yeah, he's lucky to get away with that one.
Oh, that fuel tank looks like she's a bit
doesn't look
out
right,
of shape
does it?
there, doesn't it?
Yeah. V8 Superstars, Sunday the 24th of August at 2:30 on Network 10, the regular lineup with Billy Woods in the middle trying to placate those mad drivers.
Last lap round, Ambrose 12 flat, Lowndes 12.7, Scaife 13.7, Tander 13.1, so Scaife's vulnerable to Tander. Jason Richards 13.6.
This might show us what happened to Paul Wheel. Just goes in.
Did it on his own.
Hot.
He's actually probably got on those marbles that we were talking about.
He's close. Dumbrell nearly got into the side of him. So much dirt, rubbish and garbage on the side of the road. Now they're all assaulting Greg Murphy. No, is it? Yes,
yeah,
it is
that's
Greg Murphy. It's Bradley into the side and the back of him.
And Garth Tander there just pulled out to the left to make sure that he wasn't involved. Behind that is Jason Bargwanna. So the two Kmart Commodores copping a pounding today for different reasons. Rick Kelly with tape all over the front and rear of his.
11.8 that lap for Ambrose. So he's got pace. There's no substitute for a fast car, and he's using it well. 4.7 seconds now, the margin, Ambrose to Lowndes. Bargwanna there, position 14. We've seen glimpses of Brad Jones. He's in position 13. The order at the moment, Ambrose, Lowndes, Scaife, Tander, Richards. That is Jason Richards, Todd Kelly, Russell Ingall, Paul Morris, Dean Canto, John Bow. That's the top 10. McConville, Greg Murphy, Brad Jones, Bargwanna, Dumbrell, Bernard Noski, Larkham, Wheel and Jason Bright in 20th. We're seeing glimpses also of Jamie Whincup. He's in front of Ambrose on the road, but in actual position, he's in position 21. They are slipping and sliding everywhere. This is a part of the track blend where you go through a snaking S all the way down to turn 8, and you continually lateral load the car, and some of them look pretty average down there now.
They do, absolutely, and this is where that is the part of the track where once your tyres go away, you can lose the most amount of time really easy, because you only just go in that little bit deeper to try and make up that extra time, and just slip wide, and you can lose half a second really quick.
Ambrose puts another lap on Whincup. I think it's Todd Kelly lurking there, but one lap out of it. Yes. And Russell Ingall also a lap down in 7th. There's Bow McConville, who's 11th. There's Mark Scaife. He's actually in position 3. Greg Murphy. Tander, who's in position 4. Oh, we were right in the right spot to see all that. Dumbrell and Jason Bargwanna with your teammate David Bernard, and Bargwanna managed to survive all that. But oh, Dumbrell's out in the marbles here, Glenn.
He's gone off in the marbles. He's luckily recovered it.
Isn't it a horrible feeling? The thing, they end up doing about 40 kilometres an hour, and you need one of those knobs like you have on a school bus to be able to wind the lock on.
The battle continues between Bargwanna and Dumbrell, and there's Stephen Richards in there as well. So Richo's decided to get back out there and get some points on the board at the end of another disappointing day behind the wheel.
So the actual distance between the key top 3 or 4 placeholders at the moment is quite substantial. 5.8 seconds from Marcus to Craig. But what we're seeing is a slightly confusing shot in that many of the guys that are a lap down are all bundled up in this as well.
Yeah, look at Marcus' last lap time was 11.6, and Craig's was a 12.6, so he's got clean air, and he's gaining for that speed. But it'll be interesting once Craig gets into clean air and see how even they are, the two of them.
They've recorded 97 laps. There's Lowndes on the back of Canto. John Bow in behind him. Canto's in position 9. Here's the order on the PlayStation race score. Ambrose, then Lowndes, Scaife, Tander, Jason Richards and Kelly. Look at this. Canto crossed up with Morris. There'll be more of this after the break. Too much action to go away, folks. Morris getting in the gravel. And
that break almost meant the break in half of Paul Morris's car. That was, well, it came up a lot better than what it could have ended up. Paul Morris has really been in the middle of everything today, from the very first lap now up to lap 99. Stuck around the back, and Cameron McConville had an unsettled car for quite a bit there. Now let's see exactly what happened. A little bit of contact there at turn 8. Morris is stuck wide. Dean Canto goes through, and Paul Morris is forced to wrestle his car back onto the track.
Canto, McConville and Morris battling for a position 9, 10 and 11.
Ambrose and Lowndes versus Scaife at the top 3. Wherever you're watching throughout New Zealand, Europe, China or the US, this is the Supercars. If you're into Aussie Muscle Car, back to business at Oran Park on lap 105 of 111. And Marcus Ambrose has an 8.9 second lead over Craig Lowndes.
It'd be pretty tough in the cockpit now, Matty, at that end of the day where it's hot and you've worked hard. If your car's ugly, you just want to get home. A lot of fumes in the car. Some of them have even made it into the commentary box. And Lowndes now sneaks past Ingall, who in actual fact has been on that set of tyres since lap 4.
There goes John Bow, screaming down to turn 1.
Big rush of speed there.
Here's a spot.
Oh, Dean Canto and Ingall get together. Russell maintains his position underneath the bridge. Down to turn 3.
This is for position 8 and 9. They are battling for position. McConville's in it as well.
He's going for 10th, Cameron McConville. He slips up into 9th.
Remember that Ingall's really battling with rubber problems here. Not great car speed at all. They've got to get the thing to the flag. They can't afford to go off at this late stage after all that work's done.
Let's recap your PlayStation 2 race score. Ambrose, Lowndes, Scaife, Tander and Jason Richards are your top 5. Todd Kelly is 6th. John Bow in 8th. You can see Ingall, Canto and McConville involved in that shuffle for 8th, 9th and 10th. Cameron McConville, as you can see, has already got Dean Canto's position off him at the moment. Jason Bargwanna goes through and Stephen Richards, and now the other two teammates, Mark Larkham and Paul Dumbrell, have a little bit of a spin at turn 3.
Mark Larkham was having trouble in practice with locking rears as well. He went off on a couple of occasions.
Back to the man in complete control now with 10.3 second lead over Craig Lowndes.
Scape's done a mighty job here to just survive as well in third. 13.2 on the last lap on a set of tyres that have been on the car since lap number 21. It's a long time ago. So it's just grab what you can on a day like today, get a little bundle of points and try and keep your championship hopes alive to fight for a stronger day down the track. Here he is on the back. Paul Morris. Morris is 11th. Murphy in there as well. Murphy's in 12th, so he and Morris are actually battling for position. And Scape's all mixed up in it and wants to get up the inside, and Morris won't let him. Which technically he's not supposed to do when...
No, because Morris is down a lap.
That's right.
So it's just...
He may well feel as though he's racing for position.
So much dirt rubbish over the track, and it's sort of reflecting the way the cars are feeling and looking at the moment as well. Everything seems a little bit battered and bruised at the end of a long 300k day at Oran Park. There's a face full of Greg Murphy for you. Just looking at the back of Mark Scape's car. Behind them is Garth Tander.
Because he wants to get on and battle with Morris, but Scape wants to retain that third place. He can't get tangled up in too much aggravation.
Neil going to show Paul Morris the bad sportsman flag. There's been some heated words down here in pit lane between Paul Sepradich, the chief engineer for Sirame Racing, and he's been talking to Ray Robbins about whether or not to let the guys behind him pass. They feel they've got the speed on the straight and they see no reason to let them by.
Well, at the moment, what he says is probably right, but only literally a couple of minutes ago, Mark was in a position to put a move on him going into turn 11, and Paul drove down the inside to stop it. So that's the reason why the Avesco guys will have intervened. And, that was enough to now bridge the gap, and because Scape's in a weak rubber position, it'll take a long time to chip those metres back away again. Glenn, what's your view?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, and really at the end of the day, Scape was going to try and go down the inside of him in that last turn before he came onto the straight, and then Paul did hold the inside, and really being a lap down, he should be just letting him go and get on with the job that he's got to do. But,
so eventually he'll get the meterage back again, which slowly car one's getting him again. And
imagine what Mark's saying in the cab.
I've got a fair idea.
Yeah. Not much, of course. He'd be controlled and calm. A record as far as team victories is going to be equalled here. The last Ford team to win 6 straight was Peter Jackson Racing in 1993.
There you go.
There you go. You and your teammate did 6 straight in 93 at Stone Brothers Racing, assuming that everything goes to plan for the next couple of laps for Marcus Ambrose. Will make it 6 SBR wins in a row. Remember, Russell Ingall got the Queensland Big Pond 300. And Marcus Ambrose did 4 before that. And then if you go back one more to Phillip Island when Craig Lowndes won for Ford, that makes it 7 rounds in a row for the Blue Oval Brigade. The last team to do that, 1993. JB and then the Peter Jackson team again combined to win the first 7 rounds of the season. So they're knocking on the door of some records, Stone Brothers Racing, but out in front, Marcus Ambrose is simply creating records of his own, and He's putting himself in the box seat for the championship. Said to me the other day he won't be comfortable until they get over the hump of the Enduros. And if he can look behind the Enduros and see a couple of 100 points in between him and the closest challenger, he'll be happy.
Glenn, can you see anybody laying a glove on Marcus in particular between now and the end of the championship? It'd be interesting to hear your view.
Well, Neil, it's pretty hard to see really at the moment because just to see the car, as I said earlier, in qualifying yesterday.
Whoa! Paul Morris has a big lock up into turn 1.
I reckon he's popped that front left.
I think he did, and how he managed to save it is beyond me. That's gone. That front left is gone.
But yeah, getting back to the Stone Boys, they've shown the pace this year. There's no doubt the second half of last year they've really come on with the AUs, and then naturally the improvements that the BA have been introduced with has really put them in a prime spot this year. And it's been hard work. They've been chipping at it for a lot of years now, and Marcus is driving the car very good as well.
Absolutely, they're getting the results. The race that started badly for Paul Morris ends badly for Paul Morris. The race that started on pole position for Marcus Ambrose finishes at the front. We've got ourselves a new championship leader in the V8 Supercars as Marcus Ambrose gets his 5th win of the season. And breaks.
Yeah, look, great job again. Pleasure to be part of this crew, it really is. Good level-headed race there, you know,
He breaks a 7-year stranglehold for the Holden Racing team at Oran Park. Craig Lowndes, a fantastic performance from the Cat Ford out of FPR to finish 2nd. Mark Scaife crosses the line in 3rd. In the end, it was what we thought it was going to be, a race of attrition. Kind of like a mini Bathurst. Buy a ticket to the end of the day and you're always within a shot of finishing on the podium. Well, Mark Scaife, of course, won the first round in Adelaide and led the championship. Jason Bright has led the championship since round 2. And now this man is at the top of the tree. Wins at Eastern Creek, Winton, Western Australia, Hidden Valley, and now Oran Park for 2003. A genuine title contender, no question. And just look at the crowd reaction. And you're looking at a V8 superstar, not only in the making, but probably delivered right now. The race score shows you that Dean Canto holds on to a top 10 position. We'll wrap it up right after this from Oran Park.
Well, Mark, brilliant. You managed to salvage 3rd, but that, I guess that flat-spotted tyre, hey?
Yeah, look, it cost me plenty. Rusty, that's just a bad mistake, you know. I wound some rear bar off the car to try to make it use its less rear tyre, make it flow a bit better. As soon as you do that, it lightens the inside front wheel and just scorched it. So it was a pretty average performance, but I drove a bit better later. You know, I tried to sit my head down and do a time that I could do, you know, like 12.3 or 12.4, and that's as fast as I could do.
Taxing day at the office. Good luck at Sandown.
Thanks, mate.
Craig Lowndes, you seem to come to races. You can muscle this car into any position. You're doing a good job.
Well, yeah, it's a credit to the boys, really. You know, we worked on that race format all weekend. The car actually wasn't quite as nice I'd like in the qualifying, and then in the top 10, obviously, we didn't do a good enough job. But for a race car, it was going to be a very good race, and the length of this race was awesome.
Thanks, mate.
No worries.
Well, Marcus Ambrose, a brilliant effort. How does that feel? The championship lead as well.
Yeah, just what we needed. You know, we've been trying for ages to get the championship lead back, and we've got it now. And I think we've got enough speed to the end of the year. I just hope we've got the consistency and the luck.
Good luck at Sandown. Well done.
Thank you.
Right, let's recap the top 10 for you and how many points they got out of today's 300-kilometre event. Marcus Ambrose, Craig Lowndes and Mark Scaife fill the podium. 192 more points for Ambrose. Tander in 4th, a great performance from Jason Richards. You've got Russell Ingall down there in 8th position and Dean Canto inside the top 10. As far as the championship goes, we've got a new leader. Marcus Ambrose now has a 72-point buffer on non-adjusted points over Jason Bright. Murphy maintains third position. Mark Scaife moves up a couple of positions, and Craig Lowndes is now 7th on the championship ladder. And by the way, in terms of adjusted points, when they start to drop their worst round, which is what they'll do at the end of the year, Marcus Ambrose is still our championship leader. Coming up on 10 tonight, we've got MotoGP action from Brno, where Valentino Rossi has pole position. Sete Gibernau starting alongside him, with Max Biaggi and Loris Capirossi filling the top 4. That is after the late edition of Sports Tonight. And don't forget, in a month's time, the first of the Enduros, Sunday the 14th of September from 12 till 5, the Sandown 500, the precursor to the big one at Mount Panorama at Bathurst. But here at Oran Park, Marcus Ambrose has won it again, his 5th win for 2003. Hope you enjoyed our coverage of the V8 Supercar Championship. I'm Matthew White. See you next time.
Excuse the gear.